take a deep breath. Relax. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Sit back and close your eyes. Gradually release the tension, starting from your toes, working up your legs to your pelvis, and from your fingertips, slowly up your arms to your shoulders. The Stacking Benjamins Show, no matter how bad it gets, is your favorite podcast. I will count backwards from 3, and when I snap my fingers, you'll be overcome with delight at hearing the start of this episode. 3, 2, 1.
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and when was the last time someone gave you bad financial advice on today's show? Oh wait, I should have a pause between the sentences here. I'll just start over. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and when is the last time someone gave you bad financial advice? On today's show, we'll tackle 6 pieces of financial advice you can safely ignore. Helping us today, we welcome certified financial planner, 4-time Olympian, and host of the Worth Listening podcast, Lauryn Williams. And from the Afford Anything podcast, it's Paula Pant. And it was a great idea, totally the best idea financially, to dig a bunker under the streets of LA. From lenpenzo.com, it's one of the mole people. No, they're busy tunneling under your house right now. No, we just got Len Penzo. Plus, during today's Friday Fintech, we'll talk to a founder whose company is diving deep into farmland. Farmland investing? Artem Milinchuk from FarmTogether will join us on today's show. And later, we'll magnify a listener's money, and I'll get all kind of sporty with my Olympic-themed trivia question. And now, a guy who gives me bad financial advice on the daily, like don't day trade. Ha! Then how am I supposed to be the next Texarkana high roller? It's Joe Saul-Sehy.
You're bathing in all that podcasting money, Doug. Come on, man. That's the sure way to riches. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Podcasting for the Win podcast. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy, Average Joe Money on Twitter. Here back to help you kick off your weekend with a crazy bunch of people. We will start deep under the streets of Los Angeles, where my friend Len Penzo is sitting. How are you, man?
Man, I am so happy. You know, my local Albertsons grocery store, they're having the Monopoly the game.
And that just makes your year, doesn't it? That's it.
There's $1 million to somebody's going to, and they have some other prizes too. And I actually got home from the store and went down into the bunker and opened up all my tickets. And I actually won 50 cents off some Sargento cheese. So, it doesn't get much better than that.
I got a free bottle of water like 3 days ago.
Did you? That's freaking awesome too. That's great, man.
It's amazing. And Albertsons, if you want to sponsor this podcast, Joe at stackingbenjamins.com, because Len and I, we got you. That's like the highlight for old guys. It's Friday. What do you think I'm doing? I'm headed to Albertsons for some more tickets. Come on. And the woman who's got the ticket to this podcast every Friday, that's a horrible transition, from the Afford Anything podcast, it's Paula Pant.
Wow. Yes. I'm ticketed, I am the ticket master. No, I'm not the ticket master.
No, because you don't charge us like $6.50 fee to be on the show.
I know, right? Plus like convenience fees and service, various. Yeah. Oh, I can't stand all of the various add-on charges.
I love that whole charge the convenience fee where they're like, hey, no, print it yourself at home and we'll charge you an extra $6.50.
Right? Seriously. Like, and the line itemizing just makes it so much worse. Like, just have one flat rate.
Right, exactly. I don't need the fee for Bob.
Right,
$1
exactly. Yeah.
fee for Judy, 67 cents, because she doesn't get paid as much as Bob. I mean, just horrible. Yes, not that great.
Right.
And the woman who's wondering what the heck she's doing here, back again from the Worth Listening podcast, Lauryn Williams is here.
Why do I keep subjecting myself to this torture?
Whenever you say yes, I'm like, we did it again. No idea why she keeps saving the show, but she does. How have you been?
I cannot complain. Life is all right. Nothing exciting to report over here.
You were just talking to the woman now behind The Millionaire Next Door.
I was. It was actually a really interesting podcast. You guys should tune in so that you can hear it.
She is so awesome. And you've had a lot of fun on the show lately. Tell everybody that hasn't heard Worth Listening what the show is all about.
Yes, we pride ourselves on helping people have money discussion. So get talking about your money, feel more comfortable about it. And we do it by having people come on and share their money story. So whatever your story is, you share it with the world and people know they're not alone. Right now, we're in the middle of a series with another certified financial planner named Chloe Moore, and it's called Know Better, Do Better. It is surrounded around getting people to actually know better so that they can actually do better.
Well, you're how about that? Truth in advertising. That's a surprise. Mm-hmm. We don't do that here. So. Every once in a while, we tell people they'll learn something and we're lying every time. But maybe today's the day, Lauryn, because you're here. So let's get on it.
I'm going to hold you all to a high level of integrity.
The bar is high, Lauryn. But before we get the bar too high, let's do this. If you're joining us listening to this on March 26th, Friday, you know what? We are going to be a part of Finance Podcast Week. There's going to be a bunch of live stream panels on personal finance, budgeting, and more, along with brand new exclusive episodes. But best yet, you can hang out and watch us make a Stacking Benjamin show. Actually, can't watch us. You can listen to us. I guess you can watch your phone, but all you're going to need is the Podbean app. The way to get there, Podcast Week Live, podcastweek.live/finance. Let me do that again. podcastweek.live/finance. Use the code Stacking Benjamins for a free pass. 3:30 Eastern time is when we go live. And if you ever wanted to know how we make this show, you're going to hear it warts and all as we record for future listening an episode of Stacking Benjamins. But you won't only get us, you'll also get Money Girl Laura Adams. These are, by the way, on other panels. You can check out the whole 3-day. They've crunched the week into 3 days, the 26th to 28th. But Laura Adams, Chelsea Brennan from Smart Money Mamas, our friend Chelsea will be there. Peter Schiff is going to be there. Many more. So we go live on Podbeam live stream. So one more time, we have 100 free passes only. Free passes only. I can't talk today, guys. Podcastweek.live/finance. Use the code Stacking Benjamins for a free pass as long as you're in the first 100. Hope to see you 3:30 Eastern today. You like how I slip in a commercial right when I say the bar's high? Oh, the bar's high. Hey, you should hear from these guys. Before we raise that bar, we've got Lauryn here. We got Paula here. We got Len. Let's talk about bad financial advice. Our piece today comes to us from the Atypical Finance blog. It is written by blogger Tim Jordan, who's an author and certified financial coach who says he cares most about the same thing you do, getting you where you want to be in your financial life. The thing Tim discusses here in this great piece is advice you can kind of say goodbye to. He starts off, Lauryn, let's start with you. His first piece of bad advice here is this method of budgeting is better than that method of budgeting. Have you ever gotten involved in the budget wars? Like, hey, you should do it this way?
I have not gotten involved. I think originally I was a proponent of one particular way because it was the way that was working for me. So I've actually fallen victim to believing that there was one budget that was better. And I've evolved as a financial planner. And now I realize that there are multiple ways to get to the same place.
What was the one that worked for you?
You Need a Budget, the app.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. But that's not what I use with my clients anymore. So I've changed my whole approach. And I just feel like, like you said, it's not one size fits all. We definitely know that. But one thing I will say is very important is having a budget. So what type of budget? I'm not, hung up on that, but having some way to say what's coming in and what's going out and accounting for what you're doing so that you know what's going on with your money, important.
What changed your mind though? Because You Need a Budget has worked for so many people, as you know. Was it just not working for some of your clients?
Exactly. So a lot of people don't like getting into the weeds, all the details. I spent $3.13 on this hamburger and $12 later, and to sit down and actually account for all of it. It takes me 15 minutes on a Sunday, and I do 4 different budgets. So as you learn it, it gets really, really easy and effective. But a lot of people don't want to put in that time. And I use a bucket budget system that works a lot better for people kind of based on what we're trying to accomplish.
Paula, you get all up in arms when somebody says use the wrong budget.
Well, I'm an advocate of what I refer to as the anti-budget, which is a simple 2-category approach. There's what you save and there's what you spend, and that's it. So I don't get any more granular than that. And in this context, when I say save, I don't just mean literal savings in a savings account. I mean anything that improves your net worth. So retirement contributions, payments towards a debt above and beyond the minimum required, all of that is encapsulated in what I mean when I say save in this regard.
But have you found that your kind of laissez-faire version of budgeting is too laissez-faire for some beginners or people that have spending problems?
I think partially it's just your personality, right? It's do the thing that you're actually going to stick with, because a theoretically perfect budget that you don't actually stick with is not going to do anybody any good. So it's kind of like, I think of the diet and exercise analogy where people can get really caught up in like
CrossFit,
analyzing
CrossFit.
No, not in analyzing various theories about what's better or what's worse, in terms of exercise technique or in terms of macronutrient asset allocation. People can get really caught up in these battles over what is the correct strategy. But at the end of the day, the one that you're going to stick with is the best one.
Lauryn, do you keep super track of your macronutrient asset allocation?
I don't.
I don't even know what that is, Paula. What the hell are you talking about?
Well, no, so asset allocation in the finance world is like that macro split in the food world.
So that means this corner of my plate gets the peas, that corner gets the chicken. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Lauryn, you're going to say something?
I do think that you need 3 buckets though. So I love the way you simplify it, but those are definitely the anti-budget is the bucket budget. But what I do with those beginners that you were talking about, Joe, is you need a 3rd bucket, and that 3rd bucket is your play money. So the save money, the make sure your bills are covered money, and then the play money. So that's where you get the training wheels put on if you're not going to, like you said, categorize each and every transaction. And I found that works really well for clients that are, like you said, at the beginner stage of budgeting, because when that account is empty, you got to go sit down somewhere.
Len tried to do the play money thing, but they wouldn't take the Monopoly money at Albertsons.
That's a good idea, actually, John. I might have to try that, right? Because what are they? I'm going to go when I go pay with some. They'll give me some Monopoly tickets, and I'll give them some Monopoly money in return. We'll see what happens. That's a great idea.
Just say my CFP Lauryn told me I needed play money. It's her fault.
That's going to go over great.
Len, what about your budget? Fighting words when somebody says they have a different budget?
No, hey, everybody's got to do the same, what's right for them, because everybody's different. And I think back to my son, he's the total opposite of me. I don't budget anymore, but when I was younger and just making less and things were a lot tighter, I knew everything. I know that I spent $3.52 on McDonald's one day. My son is the opposite. One, he's got ADD, so he can't even keep track of anything. So what I've telling him to do, for him, it would be, here's your income, here's your outgo, and then there's everything else. I don't even get to the part with, here's how much you got to save. At this stage of the game, he's just got to learn to stay solvent, and your income your outgo cannot exceed your income. Once he gets going with that, then we can talk about, let's add some savings into an account. But right now, it's a struggle just to keep him solvent.
But how old is he?
23.
Is that where automation comes in, though, where he keeps money out of his hands? Because I have ADD, and that's what worked for me. That and podcasting with 3 other people at once.
Yeah, that might work. I mean, or automation, or the old school which is manuals. I mean, the envelope method might work too. You know, if I just say, take all your pay in cash and put your bills in this envelope and put your, pay your bills, and whatever's left, that's what you got. You know, something is just. I don't know, Joe, but that's what as few inputs as possible to start, and then slowly build up as you get experience. That's on that for my son.
That's interesting. I'd love to hear some of our listeners' input on that too, about what type of budget, because I'm sure some people have thought through the same thing. So send those to me, joe@stackingbenjamins.com. I don't want to spend too much time on number 2 because we're doing exactly what it says is bad financial advice, which is don't discuss money with others. We're sitting here having a fun conversation about it, but spending just a minute on it. Lauryn, in your family, do they talk about money openly?
Nope, we haven't made it there yet. It is a work in progress. We were talking about it more, but on a regular basis, no. Do we talk numbers? No. With the financial planner, we talk a lot more strategy now. I'm always dropping nuggets as much as I can, but it is still very much a touchy subject.
What about with like parents and extended family? Does that you come honestly by that, not talking about it much?
I think you come honestly by it because there was an old school kind of mindset. My mom is doing better though, as she's heading toward retirement. She's trying to get things in order. And that's what I encourage my clients to do, is make sure you're talking to your parents, because otherwise we're setting up all these plans for you, and then they end up on your couch, or, you end up funding their retirement. Not fun. So we got to get chatting about it.
No, I love that. Talk about it now, or you're going to be forced to talk about it later. Paul, I think you and your parents talked about money growing up, didn't you?
No, not really. I mean, we would talk about we would say, oh, this thing is on sale over here. Those sort of daily things, like buy the bananas over there because bananas are cheaper at that grocery store than at that grocery store. We would talk about sales. We would talk about discounts. We would talk about consumer spending and finding a good deal. But we never discussed big picture saving for retirement. We never discussed any of the actual financial big things that are important. Yeah, big topics.
Yeah. Isn't that weird how the small topics are on the table, but the big topics aren't? It was the same with my family too.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's so easy and painless to be like, hey, I got this jacket on sale. Yeah. And it's so much harder to be like, hey, this is, when we anticipate paying off the house.
Len, I wanted to ask you about point number 3 on here. We've all heard this one a ton of times. Keep a credit card balance to build credit. Where the hell did this come from, Len? You always love to tell us the old Len guy stories. Tell us where this tale came from.
You know what? I think the credit card companies are the ones that put this one out myself, if I had to guess, because that's absolutely not necessary at all. You pay off your credit card every month. You're going to build your credit slow but sure. My daughter, who's 21, she has just started building her credit, and it's really quite fun watching her every month check out her credit score as it's going up, and she's getting very excited watching that go up month after month. And I've told her, it's just keep paying off those, your credit. She has a gasoline credit card right now. She actually applied for another credit card with a major bank and she got rejected because she hasn't been, and it's not for anything she did. It's just, she has not established a long enough history. So I told her, keep putting your payments on that gasoline credit card, your gas. And over time, your credit score is going to keep going up and you'll eventually get that other credit. So really the important thing here is your credit utilization ratio, right? Yeah. So ideally, you want as much open available credit based on your credit limit. The higher that limit is that you haven't used, that really helps your credit score. So keep that available credit that you haven't used as big as possible.
As a CFP, Lauryn, why do you think there's this obsession with credit scores? I mean, I get Len's daughter wanting to establish some credit, but I feel like we're not really interested in building wealth, but we sure want to make sure we have an 800 credit score.
Yeah, it's all the narratives, all the clickbaity articles. Like, I'd love to find the person who started the whole use 30%, because I get it all the time. In fact, people look at me as less credible when I tell them to pay their credit card in full. They're like, no, but there's 30% utilization. I'm like, no, you're not supposed to be above the 30% utilization. And it's totally cool to pay the whole thing. Why are people doing this? I have no stinking idea, but I'd love to punch the guy in the nose that wrote the article.
How do you assume it's a guy? Why are you assuming it's a guy? Come on.
The person. I'm going to.
I want to stick with you here for a second, because Paul and I have talked about this. Len and I have talked about this next one. Number 4 on here, Lauryn, is get a college degree.
Yes, you should get a college degree. I think you need an undergraduate degree, though. I don't know that you necessarily need the graduate degree, which might be a little bit different than what others would say. Like, the degree in and of itself is less valuable and a lot more expensive. But I think undergraduate education is still affordable and worthwhile to give you a nice bump in the income you would earn if you only had a high school education versus a college education. Now, graduate school, these 6-figure debts that people are taking on, I feel are very seldom paying off and providing additional income in a way that's going to be useful.
Yeah, Paula, agree?
Well, I think there's also another option. There are like technical and vocational schools where you can learn a specific trade. So if you want, for example, to become an electrician or a plumber, there are specialty training schools where you have something that is more advanced than a high school education, but that is specific to a given trade. And then you can make a pretty good salary, pretty good money, or even start your own business in that trade. If you choose to enter a trade that is going to be more physically demanding, you will want to think about, all right, maybe in your 20s and 30s, you'll be able to do this type of very physical work, but how are you going to transition? What do people in those fields do when they're in their 50s or 60s? Can you transition into owning a small business that does this, so that you can then transition to working more behind a desk when you get to the age where you would want to do that? That's not to say that you shouldn't go into those fields. It's just something that you want to be thinking about.
That it can wear on you after a while.
Right.
Yeah. Lauryn, do you agree with Paula's kind of recharacterization of your undergraduate degree, saying it should be something more than high school, but maybe not the whole undergraduate degree?
Yes, very much so. And in addition to that, community college is a new really good option that I think, the narrative is starting to creep in. Hey, here's another alternative. But we really got to pump that up, because a lot of schools, a lot of states, and especially are doing 2 years free of community college. And then you can go on to a big university and still get that big name that you wanted as where you finished your education for a lot cheaper price. The other thing that's really important is that if you do need to borrow for your education, to not be going with this whole cost of attendance. So the cost of attendance is super duper inflated. They're putting room and board. They're putting trips back home. If you live in California and you go to school in New York, that's all included in cost of attendance. And people are taking that full amount and living their best college life when you want to try to take as little as possible and make it much more affordable, because you're going to regret it later if you take everything that you possibly can.
It's crazy talk, Lauryn. If I don't get into a bunch of debt in college, what am I going to do the next 5 years or 10 years?
Or 25 years on these income-driven repayment plans.
That's true, right. Len, what about number 5 on this list? Renting is throwing money away.
Well, I don't know how you need a place to live, right? And owning your own home has its own expenses too. So I was never, especially there's a lot of expenses. So I totally disagree with this. Renting is that you need a place to live, and not everybody owning a home is the right thing to do. And owning a home is not a guaranteed jackpot for money at the end of the rainbow. You know what I'm saying? So I disagree with that. Renting is not throwing money away.
But Paula, I think that renting is throwing money away if I could just tent in Len's backyard.
Well, I know you're joking, but I think you're onto something in that every housing scenario needs to be evaluated based on costs, right? So if scenario A is that you pitch a tent in Len's backyard and you stay there for free, well, that's going to beat every other possible scenario. So boom, that's definitely the right answer. But for most people, what you would want to calculate is, all right, what would rent cost? And what would my costs be for an equivalent home that I own? what money would I have to bring as a down payment? And what's the opportunity cost of not having that otherwise invested? What are the ongoing operational costs like repairs, maintenance, capital expenditures? How does that compare against annual rent increases? How long do I anticipate staying in the home? Like, you do the math on both of the scenarios, and based on how that math shakes out, you will know if renting or owning is better in your specific situation and location.
Hey, Joe, can I jump in real quick? There's something called the price to rent ratio. If you just want, this is a rule of thumb and not a big, this is not a guaranteed thing, but it gives you kind of a ballpark figure if you're trying to figure out whether it's better to rent or buy. And what you do is you take the median home price and then you divide that times 12 times your monthly rent that somebody's wants for a similar priced home. And that price to rent ratio, if it's between 10 and 14, at least for in the late 80s and 90s, it was usually between 10 and 14. That would be a fairly priced price to rent ratio, which means, hey, it's probably a wash. And then lower than that, you'd be better to buy, and higher, it'd be better to rent. Well, now it's about in the 20s, 19 to 20. So you just take that median home price and then divide it by 12 times the monthly rent, and you come up with a number, and that'll give you that rule of thumb, give you an idea if it's better. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. Lauryn, I think about this, renting is throwing money away. I feel like when I was growing up, that was a thing, and mortgage people were talking about that. And even when I was a financial planner, but that's been over a decade. I kind of feel like people aren't believing this like they used to. Are you finding your youngest clients, the youngest people that you meet, that they believe that renting is throwing money away and they're in a hurry to get a house like I was when I was growing up?
I think it's still kind of 50-50. So people are calling the crazy millennials crazy because van life is now a thing. Hashtag van life. And people are giving up those homes. They bought them. They realize that they are money pits and that the water heater breaks and the roof needs replacing and the yard needs done. And they're like, forget this. I'm going to go get me a van and live in my car. And that's going to be a perfectly normal thing. There is still that other half that is very much, I need land, and land helps me build wealth, and I got to settle down, and it's the next adult thing to do. And I'm constantly talking people off the ledge that, tell me that their values and their vision is one thing, and then say that home ownership is also an important thing. So as an example, I love to travel. So home ownership is not top of the priority list for me, because I'd much rather rent, be able to pick up and go wherever I want, because I want to, I did 11 countries in 2019. And a lot of people say that those are those values. I want to travel, but then you also want to get a home. Well, if you want to get the home and you're going to have a really high mortgage, you're going to be at home working so you can pay the mortgage, working so you can pay the mortgage, and not going on very many trips. So what do you really want versus what are people saying?
How many countries in 2019?
11
countries. And how many countries in 2020?
Two. I did make it 2.
You actually made it to 2, because I only made it to 1.
I was in Indonesia when the world shut down. Everybody's like, come home. And I'm like, why? It's great over here. Like, nothing's happening in Indonesia.
Oh, that's crazy. I wanted to go to Bali, and, we know how that turned out. Did not make it. So those are the 6 pieces they had. I was wondering if there's any others as you saw this piece that you guys had that you thought, you know what, these are some other pieces of advice that people need to ignore. Lauryn, I think you got one.
Well, you missed one. There's some debt is good debt. That wasn't 6. That was 5.
I only had 5 fingers on that hand. So sorry.
I just wanted to say, I think that this circles back to, you asked me earlier about like credit and how important credit is. This goes right along with that. Some debt is good debt. Ultimately, your credit score is a means to be able to say, I am worthy to take on more debt. We put a lot of pressure on, I got to have a really great credit score. But what do you need that great credit score for unless you're going to take on additional debt? And debt at the end of the day is something that none of us want. So we think of homes as the quote unquote good debt, but do we actually need to have this great credit score our whole life and build it and keep it? And once you have the home, what else do you need it for? So way too much pressure on the credit score, to answer your question from earlier.
Yeah.
If you got bad credit, you're doing something wrong. But just because you have good credit doesn't mean that you're financially healthy. And then debt is debt. Debt means you owe someone. So you need to just take that into consideration.
I think that's fantastic. Also, I don't know, Len, do you agree it's not good or bad, it's just degrees of bad?
Well, no, I don't think so. I believe in good debt. I mean, if you're going into something for the right reason, like if you're going to start a business, a lot of people don't have the capital to start that business up. You need a loan. I mean, that's
but
good
isn't
debt.
isn't it still bad? But it's a necessary. They use a phrase necessary evil. Isn't it necessary evil versus good?
Well, I guess I don't look at it that way. You know what? It's perfectly fine. It's like a mortgage. Would you call a mortgage, a bad thing? I mean, a lot of people couldn't even get into a home without a mortgage, but you need a home. And I don't know. I guess it's just, I don't look at it that way. I do look at it as debt.
Well, because then it's a
how
necessary,
else are you going to start your business?
It's a necessary evil. I mean, it's not
I
don't
know if it's evil.
Well,
is it necessary?
Yeah. Cause I borrow money from somebody else. Paula?
So I don't like the terms good and bad because they're moralizing and they create the sense of judgment.
Okay, come on, stop it.
It's true. I don't like the terms good and bad. I think that there is cash flow positive debt and there is cash flow negative debt. To Len's example, if you are borrowing money in order to start a business, let's say that you need to buy a forklift in order to
start your podcast.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you need to take out a loan for a podcast, but let's say that you secure a contract, and in order to execute the terms of that contract, you need major equipment. You need a forklift. You need like various things that are necessary for the execution of this particular contract that you have in hand. In that case, you will most likely have cash flow positive debt because the monthly income that you are collecting as a result of this contract is going to be higher than the monthly expenses that you're paying on that loan where you're paying off that forklift. So that's cash flow positive debt. Similarly, like with rental properties, if you're doing it right, it's cash flow positive debt. And I think that's where the distinction needs to be.
And Paula, also in terms of if the interest rate is low enough, it's a no freaking brainer, especially, if you've got a low enough interest rate and you've got a long enough loan, over time, you're coming out ahead. Mm-hmm. So that's another way to look at it too. So, the more I'm thinking about it, I'm absolutely positive there is such things as good debt.
But what about the narrative? Like I said, I'm big on like messages that are being told to everyone. And so to your point, Len, like good debt, bad debt. What if I just buy the house cash? Like, why is it the narrative that we will never be able to do so? Like, yes, it's really expensive in California.
Because there's something called the time value of money and net present value. And sometimes it just makes sense on a macroeconomic basis to take out the loan on a long enough timeline. You actually end up paying less, believe it or not, by taking the loan out and paying that loan off with depreciating dollars over time. You actually come out ahead rather than paying all cash up front.
All right. So you're my financial planner. Please tell me if I made a bad decision. I paid cash for my home. Should I go refinance and get some cash out of it now because interest rates are really low?
Well, I'm not a CPA, or I'm not a certified financial planner either.
What would you do with that cash if you were to refi it?
I don't need it. I don't need it. I paid cash for the home because I don't want to have a mortgage so that I don't have to make as much money so that I can travel.
Right. So that's why I ask what you would do with the cash, I
guess I could invest it because, if I take it out of the house at 2%,
that's what I would have done.
I would make a higher percent.
I would have taken out a 30-year loan at 2.25%. And then I'd put that other money to work somewhere, either into a business or into investment or something. That's what I'd be doing right now, just because interest rates are so low. So.
But then I'm going to be super stressed because now I got to come up with the mortgage money every month instead of going on a trip.
Well, if it's invested in a cash flow positive way, then you don't have to come up with that money every month because the investment is generating that cash.
You guys are both hired. I'm going to go get a refi right now.
But that being said, I mean, I can argue both sides of this, right? I'm under contract right now on a property in Indianapolis that I'm buying in cash and I'm going to renovate in cash. And then once that is done, once I'm finished with the renovation, then I'm going to refinance it and take out a loan against the higher value property, the after renovation property, and do it again. So in that particular case, I'm starting with cash, but then using that cash to do exactly what you're talking about, to refi it in a few months. But I also have a different property in Atlanta that I have a very strong emotional connection to this one particular property. it's paid off. It's free and clear. And I am not going to borrow against it because never risk what you're not willing to lose. And because I have such a strong emotional tie to this property, I'm not willing to lose it. Therefore, I'm not willing to risk it. There are valid reasons, I think, on both sides, valid reasons for choosing to keep a lot of equity tied up in a property without trying to mathematically optimize it, and vice versa, and the opposite.
It's funny because I think we can then, well, I don't know. Can we agree then on the phrasing of this? But I think in different ways. I think that the phrasing of this then is absolutely spot on, that some debt's good and some debt's bad. Paula, you're saying debt's neither good nor bad.
It is either cash flow positive or it is cash flow negative.
Lauren's saying that there is no good debt. Debt is debt.
I'm kind of more in Paula's boat, but yeah, overall, it is debt. It is debt. Yeah.
And Len thinks
both of those things.
Len thinks number 6 here is just wrong.
I think there's good debt. I do.
Managing your money has typically been complicated, time-consuming, and just another reason to bite your nails. But for 500,000 investors who have accounts with M1 Finance, investing is smarter, more automated, and easier than ever. Do yourself a favor this year and check out M1. This finance super app is designed to be personalized for your needs, and their automation tools make it simpler to reach your financial goals. With M1, you can invest how you want with access to fractional shares and unmatched automation, all for free. You can borrow against your investments at super low rates, just 2 to 3.5%, and use that flexible portfolio line of credit for anything like investing more into your portfolio or refinancing other loans or funding large projects. M1 ties it together in a free digital account so you can have more flexibility and smoother money movements. Just keep in mind, stackers, borrowing involves higher risks and rates may vary. Visit m1finance.com/SB to sign up. And guess what? Because you're a stacker, you're going to get $30 to invest. Again, that's visit m1finance.com/SB to sign up and get $30 to invest. Terms and conditions apply. Coming up next is our Friday Fintech segment, and I'm super excited to introduce this next guest because if you're new to the show, you don't know anything about me, I find this next area of investing really interesting, and that is investing in farmland. Farmland, when it comes to real estate, reacts differently to market conditions than commercial or residential real estate. It also correlates in a unique way with the stock market, compares favorably with bonds. However, on the other side, obviously, when you're buying land, it's not that liquid, right? You still have to find a buyer, and you also have to get a price that you want at that time. So here to talk about investing in farmland from FarmTogether, let's say hello to CEO and founder Artem Milinchuk. And coming down to sit across the basement from me, from FarmTogether, it's my new friend, Artem Milinchuk. How are you, Artem?
I'm well, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so glad that you could join us. Fans of our show know that I grew up in farm country, and so I've always thought of farmland as an underappreciated investment. Maybe not so much lately, which I think we can get into. I feel like there's been a much brighter spotlight on farmland. That's my introduction to farms, was working on farms as a kid. What was your introduction to farmland and farmland investing?
Yeah, I would say, my introduction has been sort of somewhat involuntary. So I grew up, born and raised in Soviet Union, and then that collapsed, grew up in Russia. But if you talk to anyone who kind of lived in Soviet Union, especially in the 80s, food was scarce. I often joke that US won the Cold War not because of nukes, but because of full grocery shelves.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone in Russia had this little patch of land that you worked. The government gave it to you with very generously because they couldn't provide food. And so we all worked every summer with my grandparents, with my parents, planting mostly potatoes because it's something that stores really well. Then a bunch of other things, some chickens. And it's just really, we then, in the winter, that's what you would eat. And so it just gave me a very healthy appreciation for food, for farmers, for farmland, because it's something that, especially in today's world that is ever changing, it's kind of this one constant that you can rely on. People need to eat. So it's really nice to build your investment portfolio, your career on something that is like so real and tangible.
Did you go then right from farms and working with your grandparents on the farm to being interested in it from the very beginning? Like when you went to college, were you interested in farming from the beginning?
No. So when I went to college, I was really interested in investing. And so I went to learn finance, to learn business. But serendipitously, when I started sort of the finance investing career, I was kind of put into the food sectors, the farmland, the ag sectors. And as luck would have it, once you put into something first, then you sort of continue in that path. And so I spent my professional career from 2004 to 2018, when I started FarmTogether, mostly around food and agriculture in the finance space, investing in food and ag and farmland, investing kind of surrounding areas. And this was both mostly in Canada, on behalf of pension funds, on behalf of private equity funds and family offices. Looked really wide and deep. And so have a really good kind of 360 view on not just farmland, but everything that kind of touches farmland, whether it's equipment like John Deere, whether it's end markets, what is the demand for almonds, what are the new food trends. And then also before FarmTogether for a year, I was at a company called Full Harvest Technologies, which is a marketplace for the ugly second hand kind of produce that actually is a huge market and a great company by itself.
It is a great market. And that's an interesting story on its own, as you know, a very interesting story. Is that when, this is a horrible pun, but is that when the seed was planted for FarmTogether? Tell me about then the evolution of your company.
Yeah, and look, don't feel bad about puns. There's so many of them, and we have like a whole a lot of fun with us. So the seed was planted, I would say, in 2015-16 when I was at a big Canadian pension fund called Ontario Teachers, which serves the teachers of the province of Ontario. And it was me just looking at the space and looking how a very sophisticated, very diversified asset manager, Ontario Teachers, still had very little invested in farmland. And yet we would go and look at, really crazy places, crazy markets like satellites, innovation and crypto, all kind of like, cutting edge science. And yet, this literally asset class under our feet, we barely were looking at it. And it didn't make any sense.
Well, and what's funny, Artem, from where I grew up in Michigan, right across from Ontario, you've got all this farmland right in your backyard all around you. That's in Ontario.
That's right. There's a lot of great land in Ontario, and it definitely has appreciated quite a bit in the last 10 years. And so I looked at it and I said, okay, you have a $2.5 trillion market, almost $3 trillion, including Canada. You have, just a little bit about the market, but it's fantastic returns, low volatility, low correlation. People need to eat. Population is growing. Farmland is decreasing. Great ESG sustainability story to tell, impact around climate change, regenerative agriculture, uncorrelated. I can go on and on and on. It's like, there's no way that people will not pay attention to this, that they will not invest in it, that they will not want it. And if that's going to be the case, well, why don't I create a company that will actually facilitate the investing into the asset class? And look, Ontario Teachers now has a robust farmland program. They're innovative in that regard. But FarmTogether is really, the goal is to open it to everyone. And right now it's only unfortunately accredited investors because it's just legally complicated, but we hope to open it up to everyone. That's really was, as they say, my story is very typical of a founder that just wanted to solve a problem for himself and his friends.
Yeah. Let's dive in a little bit to some of the things that you said, things that you and I know a lot about, but our listeners do not. You talk about low correlation with farmland. Explain that.
Yeah. So just to take a step back, in layman's terms, it's really when you're building an investment portfolio, if two of your investments move in lockstep with each other, well, you really then only invested in one thing because even though it might look like it's two, but, we see like Apple goes up, Microsoft goes up, Apple goes down, Microsoft goes down, Tesla goes down, Facebook goes down, like tech stocks move in lockstep. And so for any portfolio that is long-term, that helps you meet your long-term financial goals, of which there are several, the science of investing is very clear. You should have a well-diversified portfolio. And what it means is that things that don't move in lockstep with each other, that are uncorrelated with each other. So farmland is a prime example of that, where it's it moved in kind of its own way. Two great examples would be 2008 financial crisis. Everything, right, was down 30, 40, 50, 100%.
Which by the way, started with other types of real estate. I mean,
that's right.
Real estate was a forest fire at that time, but farmland withstood it. Yeah.
So, and, I'm glad you mentioned real estate because, right before financial crisis, everyone thought real estate is like as safe as it goes. Yeah. It was kind of during COVID as well. Farmland was up. The NCREIF Farmland Index was up 23% during the financial crisis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's done really well.
Much more stability. A lot of people looking at farmland say that farmland compares for long-term portfolios. I mean, we'll talk about exit strategies and being able to remove your money because you're investing in land, right? But if you've got a long-term goal, a lot of people say that farmland compares very favorably to bonds over long periods of time. Would you agree with that assessment?
Oh, 100%. And we have a lot of our investors who call it like a better bond or inflation protected bond, because bonds have a couple issues. One is unless you're buying like an inflation linked bond, your fixed payments go down in value as inflation happens. And then secondly, bonds don't appreciate in value. You invested and then you get $100 back of the 100 you invested. Farmland has a very stable coupon. If we look at the volatility of farmland index since it started in 92, it's about 6.9%, which is slightly higher than bonds, but much lower than stocks. And then secondly, farmland has, you said it's an underappreciated asset class. Well, it definitely appreciated from a price perspective where it's been up almost 6% annually for the past 50 years and definitely has continued that increase in value. So you have a lot of bond-like characteristics of stable returns, but you also have price appreciation component there, as well as tremendous inflation protection. Farmland during periods of inflation has done better than even gold sometimes. So it's a really good inflation hedge.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about that too, that even correlations there, which there are a lot of, are interesting. A lot more interest in farmland, as you know better than anybody, being on the front line now than there was 5 years ago. Certainly way more interest in farmland now than 10 years ago. Does that make your job harder?
Look, it's definitely more interest than 10 years ago. It's still a drop in the ocean when we look at the $2.5 trillion farmland market. And by the way, it's almost all owned by families right now. So it's very fragmented. Less than 2% of that is owned by any kind of formalized investor. So there's still, most people haven't heard about farmland investing. Thank you for having me on your show to kind of talk about the market. And so it's still very much completely blue ocean, a very nascent market in a lot of ways. And I think that's good because when you look at a lot of asset classes, typically you have like people whose full-time job is to invest, right? And they hunt the world for any kind of opportunity. And really, I would say besides like crypto, farmland is probably the only other asset class where an individual retail investor has an upper leg moving before most of like the large guys catch up to it. And you're right, Joe, like we're already seeing more funds spinning up. We're seeing existing funds raise more capital. There's definitely a little bit interest heating up in certain sectors, but I would still say there's probably a good few years for the individual investor to come in before this like wave of capital shows up from pension funds and large endowments, foundations. Yeah.
I know that you are very interested in ESG investing, and FarmTogether really has a slant toward ESG. Tell me how that works. What interests you about where farming meets ESG?
Yeah, absolutely. So ag is actually a large emitter of CO2 emissions. At the same time, it can be a big part of the solution for climate change. And ESG is, a broader environmental, societal, and governmental kind of investing. So there is not just climate change to mention, but it's the big one that comes to mind. And so there's two things that FarmTogether does in that regard. One is we are signed up for the standard called Leading Harvest. It's a standard around sustainability for managing farmland in the United States. And 100% of our farms actually signed up for that. So what it means is that we're committed to very actionable, very measurable steps that are audited by a third party to decrease the kind of amount of kind of negative contribution to climate change as well as to soil, which is really important because remember, like soil quality and soil health is very important. Otherwise, we're just not going to have any soil left. And then secondly, we also committed to bringing regenerative agriculture to the platform. So what it means is that if you think about sustainable agriculture, in layman's terms, it's decreasing the amount of inputs that you use, less fertilizer, less water, making sure that the soil is kind of treated well. And it's good for the business as well, right? You use less fertilizer, then you're spending less. So it's kind of do well and do good kind of scenario. In regenerative agriculture, before you're playing kind of defense with climate change, here you're playing offense. And regenerative is definitely having a moment as well where you farm in a way that captures more carbon in the soil, and then you can get paid for that via carbon credits, as well as improve the value of the soil. It's probably one of the few industries that can actually be not just a carbon kind of zero, but a carbon negative industry where agriculture can recapture carbon from the atmosphere. Probably one of the few industries that can truly do it. So we're really excited about that. That's still early stages in terms of development, but in terms of scalable solutions to climate change that can actually be on the offense, that's probably one of the few that we have.
Do you guys screen for that when you're making investments, or do you work with farmers on that?
We both screen for that and work with farmers on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's dive in then about how FarmTogether works. So if I'm an investor and I make an investment, tell me about how my investment then works. Do I pick from a set of different farmlands that are available on the site? Walk me through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So as most people don't know about farmland investing, we have spent a lot of time putting together educational materials so you can get up to speed in an easy to understand way. When you go on the website, you register. And by the way, everything can be done fully electronically, both investing as well as managing your investments. Right now, you do pick from a variety of deals. Typically, we have a deal every 2 to 3 weeks. Those deals vary in terms of geographies and crops. And we aim to kind of stage it between different crops through the year. So you can rest assured that you'll be able to build a portfolio of almonds, pistachios, corn, soybean, apples, citruses, things like that. So you do pick, but every deal that we put on the platform has gone through a tremendous amount of filtering, underwriting. Like, we say no to so many deals. We recently actually passed a milestone where we have reviewed now over $1 billion of deals. And I can tell you that, it's a magnitude lower of the deals that actually make it to the platform. So it's a very strict criteria. We look for, don't want to go into the, what we look for, in this question, but it's a lot of different things. So you can rest assured that the deal that we show is a deal that we underwrote and that we think is a good balance of risk return. And then you can pick and choose. We talk about risks. We talk about why we like the deal. There's webinars and you can ask questions. So really give you the time to understand a particular investment. Yeah.
And my understanding is your company money is invested alongside with individual investors. Is that true?
It's not company money, but we as a principal, so FarmTogether.
As principals, yeah.
We're a startup and we still make startup salaries, but we're not.
I shouldn't laugh at that, but I know I talk to every Friday. I talk to somebody who has an awesome startup. So I'm laughing with you, not.
No, it's not at all. And so we do actually, the main principles of the company invest our personal money into every deal, but it's not millions. Right, it's something. Yeah, we just feel it's important to be aligned. And look, hopefully our investors do well, FarmTogether does well, and then we can put more capital alongside the deals, because I think ultimately that's what we want to do, is be fully aligned with our investors on the outcomes.
And to be clear here, because I think that people get into investment sometimes for the wrong reason. Growing up in West Michigan with a lot of farm country and working on farms, it's not like you buy an investment like this and 6 months later, you're redoing your bathroom, so you want to sell half an acre, right? I mean, you're definitely looking long-term with this money. About how long a time frame should somebody expect when they're investing with you in farmland?
10 years is probably the best hold period, or longer. Ideally, what we would like to do is to have a liquid secondary market that we're working on, so that while the hold period is 10 years, you could put your share up for a sale. And if someone wants to take it at the price that you specify, they can buy it. That's work in progress. having seen other platforms in real estate, for example, Cadre has a very successful, I believe, secondary market. We don't see any really barriers to introducing that, and hope to have that, soon enough.
And you said also that it's available to accredited investors now. How long do you think it may be until everyone can invest?
That's a great question. Look, personally, I wish that I could have it day one, but the legal framework, which actually I think yesterday came into effect, or last week. So now there's a more liberalized rules for crowdfunding investing. So that's exciting. But it's also, I think for us, it's important to maintain a universal standard of service to clients, no matter whether you invested $500,000 or $50. And right now we just don't have the infrastructure to be able to effectively service and answer questions for thousands of clients. We also just want to really fully, and I think the website and the platform right now works really seamlessly. You can invest in a matter of minutes. You receive your tax documents online. You can see everything, kind of what's going on. We just want to really streamline everything so that when we open it up to everyone, it's like millions of people, that suddenly not that we can actually answer questions and make sure that thousands, millions of people are completely taken care of. So it's probably, sorry, Joe, that's a long-winded way to say that personally, I hope as soon as possible. Realistically, probably another year or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in the big scheme of things, that's fairly short. That's shorter than I thought that it might be, but that is good news. It's called FarmTogether. We will link to you on our show notes page at stackingbenjamins.com. I know right on the front page, there is a video where you teach people even more. You get a little bit more into depth. And then I know you have tons of education on the site. So thanks for hanging out with us and talking farmland for a few minutes. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Oh, well, woo. Okay. Hey, Stackers. I'm your pal, Joe's mom's neighbor. Okay, Doug, sorry for sweating all over the mic, but I'm just in training here for the Japan Olympics. I think I'll start with that one and then transition to winter next time around. Kind of like my good buddy Lauryn here. Hey, speaking of Olympics, did you know that flipping through my holiday calendar, I noticed that today is make up your own holiday day. Well, we already know today has got to be two Olympians on the podcast day. So Lauryn and I together, like you're here, I'm here, she's here, two Olympians in the same podcast. You're welcome, podcast family. Well, before I run off and do my training, today is windmills and jumping jack day. That's the day I go miniature golfing and yell at that kid Jack down the street until he jumps. Let's get to today's trivia. The USA is the all-time leader in Olympic medals, of course. So the question is, how many medals has the U.S. won combined in both Summer and Winter Olympics? I'll be back faster than you can step on the gold medal podium.
Yeah, that may not mean what he thinks it means, but it's got to be good, Lauryn, to have another Olympian here with you in the basement.
Yeah, nope. Doug's not. I mean, you can make up your own definition of things if you want, but I'm just gonna say hard stop there. You can't be an Olympian, Doug.
You tell him. I'm not gonna tell him. I don't know. Doug.
Does he mean that he lives in a city called Olympia?
Well, I guess we'll have to ask him when he comes running back. For those of you new to this, not only does Doug give us kind of a wild premise, but we also have a year-long competition here between our three contributors, Len, OG, and Paula. Len has 4. OG has 4. And today you are our OG surrogate today, Lauryn. So you have 4. And Paula has 3, which means Paula gets to go last. Len is the 2-time champ. So he's the trivia Olympian. How about that? No? Can't do that in this basement. No,
not a thing.
So, Len,
contestant, but not an Olympian.
Len, you gotta go first, man. How many medals summer and winter does the U.S. have?
Yeah. Okay. So as usual, I'm going to set the bar for everyone here, and I'll help you all out while I'm thinking about this. So I'm writing this down right now. Let's see. I'm guessing roughly, I think the first Olympics this is modern Olympics, right? So I think the first modern Olympics was in 1896, I think. So that would be roughly 25 through the 20th century, 25 Summer Olympics and 25 Winter Olympics. So that's 50 Olympics. Then we've got a few here in the 21st century. Let's see, real quick, 3 more. I'm just going to round off. I'm just going to say make my math easier. So I'm going to say 25 Summer Olympics and 25 Winter Olympics. And generally, it seems like the U.S., at least in my lifetime, it seems like, if I remember, they've usually come up with like 150 medals in the Summer Olympics. Let me get my calculator. My Hewlett-Packard 15C engineering calculator. Not that I need an engineering calculator for this. So we'll say 150 medals times 25 for summer. And in the winter, I think they usually win about, I'm guessing, half that. 80 times.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear this number.
I know. And then you guys can just Chelsea Brennan me, and all that work's going to go down the drain. Mm-hmm. So that's 2000 Winter Olympics. And that is 25 times, add it, 5,750 medals. Does that? That's all medals, right, Joe? That's not just gold medals.
All medals.
Yep. That's my number, 5,750 medals for the United States.
All right, Lauren, that's the way you do it.
Well, I'm an Olympian, so not only am I an Olympian, but I'm an Olympic sprinter. So what do we like to do? Things short and straight to the point. I ran a straight line, 11 seconds or less. I'm not doing all those calculations. I'm going to go ahead and take Len's number and divide it down the middle. So I can go with 2,500, or if you want to give me the exact number, then I'll go with 2,500 plus whatever the little numbers that were hanging off the back that you did, because your number is way too high. I do know that I think it's more like 300 for summer, and it's more like 30 for winter. Like, as I said, 11 seconds, not doing the math. So 2,500. That's what I'm going with.
2,500. Paula?
I'm very confused by all of this. But ultimately, the choice that I have to make is...
Oh boy, here's always Paula's. Rash it out.
Do I think it's higher than Len's guess, lower than Lauren's guess, or somewhere in the middle? Len, what was your guess? 5,700 something?
You caught me right in the middle of eating a Triscuit, but it's 5,750.
5,750. Okay. Then I'm going to guess 5,749.
Oh, Paula.
And that's the way you do it. 5,749. Well,
somewhere in the middle. This is like the Jeopardy numbers.
She's taken the top half of the middle. She's given you, she thinks apparently, Lauren, you're way too low there. So we will.
Not way too low, but I had to pick somewhere.
We'll find.
Len sounded very, very fancy in his calculations. It was very convincing. But
I was hoping Paula would go one over, because I think my number's a little high, maybe. But
there wasn't as many events way back in the day. We've evolved. There's now more sports and things like that. So it started to grow, but the whole time, no.
We'd love to tell you who's right here in this fight, but we don't do that yet. We'll be right back. Well, running a small business, as you may know, like I do, it is super fun, but it can also be very tough. And when it's time to get a loan, it can feel impossible to find the lender that you actually trust. Big banks say no. The internet, well, that's full of sketchy offers with sky-high rates and fine print you can barely read. Whether you need help covering payroll, managing cash flow, or investing in growth, you deserve better. And that's why I recommend the small business marketplace Fundera, which is powered by NerdWallet. It's a free, easy-to-use platform. It lets you compare real financing offers from trusted lenders, and it's all in one place. And what I like is that you don't need perfect credit to get started. There's no spam, there's no bait and switch, just personalized options that fit your business needs. Nothing I like better than a place that treats me the way that they would want to be treated. Using Fundera is a super way to quickly compare options and make your best funding move the way any great business owner would. Here's the best part, though. For a limited time, when you visit nerdwallet.com/SB and fill out the no obligation form, you're going to get VIP treatment and talk with a real person who knows all the ins and outs of small business lending. And you can tell them specifically what you're looking for. They can tell you specifically which options you should probably consider most. Don't risk your business on unreliable lenders. Go to nerdwallet.com/SB to learn more and find the funding you deserve. Fundera Inc., NMLS ID number 1240038. Well, there's nothing that relieves stress more when you have had a long day, you are completely fried, and you're thinking to yourself, maybe I'll just go out to dinner. But then you think about all those calories, all that money out of your wallet, and then you realize that you can eat healthy because you found Factor. Factor is ready in 2 minutes. Factor shops, preps, cooks, and delivers straight to your door, so you have more time for everything you love this spring, and you don't have to worry about eating healthy and going outside your budget because you've got the food sitting there in the fridge that you had pre-planned. What is Factor? Well, Factor has meals built around your goals, whether that's weight loss, overall nutrition, more protein, or GLP-1 support for strength and workout recovery. Check out Factor's Muscle Pro collection. Every meal's crafted with functional ingredients, lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. Factor bans 175 plus ingredients. No artificial colors or sweeteners, no high fructose corn syrup, no refined seed oils, just nutrient-dense foods. It's fresh, never frozen, over 100 rotating weekly meals, including globally inspired flavors like Mediterranean and Asian, so there's always something new to look forward to. I use Factor. I think you're going to love it too. Head to factormeals.com/SB50off, stackers, and use code SB50off, and you're going to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with new subscriptions only while supplies last until 9/27/2026. Len, you're at 5750, which means with Paula going one lower than you, hey, if it's 9,000, you've got it.
I'm screwed. No, Paula went under me. I'm screwed. I'm screwed. This is between the two ladies.
Paula, you think so?
I mean, I really have no idea how to predict this. I have just no concept of how many the U.S. would win in a year. So, or in any given game. So I'm just kind of anchoring off of what I'm hearing.
Lauren, you feeling good?
Yes, I'm feeling really good. Paula, you should have listened to me. I said 300 and I said also 30. So I gave you at least a broad idea. I don't know the exact numbers, but
it's true. We have one Olympian in the room and Paula's like, yeah, I don't know.
I also didn't want to, I didn't want to, like, Len can take it. You know, I didn't want to
step on our guest's toes.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Yes, being very nice, being nice to our guests.
You're too kind.
But what's funny is she's playing on behalf of OG, Paula. You wouldn't do that with OG.
That's true.
Right.
You would not do that with OG. You'd step on his toes any day. Come on.
Of course.
Yes.
All right, let's get to the good part. OG is the winner.
All right. Well, hold it. So Doug, who's going to win this thing?
Hey, y'all. So I've been getting some very odd emails during the break. Things like, if you're an Olympian, then I'm the Queen of England, or stealing quesadillas from Joe's mom kitchen every day doesn't make you an Olympian. All right. Let's set the record straight. My Olympic experience has been a bit unique from Lauren's, but I think we can all agree that we're both Olympians, all the same. Like, I can sprint around the block and barely be winded at all. Oh, okay, like a little. But that's my asthma. You can't do any. I mean, Olympians can have. And I watch almost all of the opening and closing ceremonies. Nobody does that. I do it. Except when they get a little boring, though. I mean, am I right, Lauren? Sometimes I'm like, you've been there, right? Standing there, you're like, God, when is this thing going to end? There's so much fire and fireworks and like pigeons flying around. They just last too long. You're an Olympian if you can last through all of that. And I sure know how to party and spray champagne just as well as any gold medal winner that you've ever seen before. Happy now? Ignore the haters, Mom says, and she is absolutely right. I think we'll keep it positive and just get back to today's trivia. The question was, how many medals has the U.S. won combined in both Summer and Winter Olympics? Well, Great Britain has the third most medals with 883. USSR is in second with 1,204. And as you already know, the US of A is in first with a decisive 2,828 total medals. And that's not counting the 4 I've earned for watching the opening and closing ceremonies. Of course, my Olympic buddy Lauren scores a win on this. Now it's time for me to get back to training so I can help the US of A grow our medal count lead. If I play my cards right, I might be able to take a gold in the mic drop category. Check this out. See ya! That's gold medal right there. I mean, you can't beat that. No one's beating that.
Should have known. I should have known.
It's literally almost exactly half of your number. That's what I should have
never argue with an Olympian. Never argue with an Olympian.
But I could have been even closer if I just would have done that. Like if I should have said, "Hey, what was that 5750 divided by 2?" Because that is like, what is it? 2875.
Would you have felt as smart if I'd have guessed 10,000? Would you have felt as smart?
I definitely still wouldn't have gone. I wouldn't have gone half of that number at that point. I just know that it can't be so high. But I do appreciate you doing all that math to give me somewhere to anchor and win.
Anytime, Lauren.
You would have missed it by less than 50, Lauren. You'd have missed it by less than 50.
Wow. Yeah. That would have been like not just a gold medal that I just got. It would have been like the world record to miss by less than 50.
Hey, like the Showcase Showdown. You win 2. You win both prizes.
Right.
Well, before Lauren gloats too much, let's take out the magnifying glass and help somebody do better with their money. Today's hotline call comes to us courtesy of magnifymoney.com. Lauren, when you head to stackingbenjamins.com/magnifymoney, you know what happens?
What?
Oh, it was great.
Oh, so she knows how many medals that the U.S. won over, but she doesn't know that answer.
That's
Lauren.
Yeah, what's up with that? Lauren,
well, I'm getting ready to know it soon.
She's open to knowing it. Lauren, you'll find that those financial products you use every day, savings accounts, checking accounts, reward credit cards. We talked about getting your credit in order. So if you need the secured credit card, whatever it might be, stackingbenjamins.com/magnify money. Over 92% of all the things available online, all ranked head to head at magnifymoney.com. By the way, Len, something that you might want for your daughter. I had my kids go to Magnify Money, and there is a great section in their library for people trying to build credit. And both of my kids got credit cards right away using the Magnify Money.
Really?
Links. Yep. Went to the right place.
Going there tonight.
Autumn started off with the Discover card that they recommended. And then Nick started off with a Visa that they recommended. So they both went 2 different ways, but they both got credit early.
Awesome.
So stackingbenjamins.com/magnify money. Today we're going to say hello to, I believe the name here says Anonymous, and Paula and I have a thing that we do on both these shows. Whenever somebody's name is anonymous, we go to the last TV show or movie that we saw. And Paula, how long ago was that for you? Like 18 years ago, 20 years ago?
So the show that I am watching right now is 30 Rock.
All right. It's a woman. So is this Tina? Are we talking to Tina?
Yeah, or Liz Lemon.
Or Liz. It's Liz.
Liz.
Let's say hi to Liz.
Hey, Joe, OG, and whoever else happens to be around. I have a quick question about what happens when a publicly traded stock is sold and becomes a privately traded stock. I currently hold shares of Michael's Craft Store and found out recently that they will be selling and going private. And I'm just curious as to what happens. Do they sell off my shares at a specific time? Do I have a choice? I don't really need the money from those shares. It was kind of part of my sandbox money anyways, and it's not a huge sum. But I am curious as to how this process works, since it's not something that gets talked about a lot, and I've never experienced it. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time.
That is a great question, Liz, and we are here to help. Paula, have you ever had any stocks in your portfolio go private?
No, not that I know of. I did recently have a stock that is clearly on the verge of getting delisted. So Washington Prime Group, they had to do a reverse stock split, a 9-to-1 reverse stock split in order to keep from getting delisted, because they otherwise would have been trading at less than $1 a share, thus qualifying them as a penny stock. So they did this reverse stock split, which I freaked out because I logged into my account and the first thing that I saw was the price of each share had gone through the roof. And I was like, you
thought you made a ton of money.
Yeah. And then I looked at the number of shares I had and I was like, that's not right. And then it took me forever. And then, I was like, what? But I swear I had a lot more shares than that. What happened? And that was when I figured it out.
I saw a TikTok video where an investor, clearly very knowledgeable TikTok investor, I say completely sarcastically, was talking about how they missed out on this penny stock that went through the roof. Like they were thinking about investing and they didn't, and then it went through the roof and they would have been a multimillionaire, not realizing it was a reverse stock split and they wouldn't have made any money. But anyway.
But then they ended up defaulting on one of their loans, and it looks like they're going to be declaring bankruptcy. So it looks like they'll be delisted anyway. So I've just recently kind of gone down the Google rabbit hole of what happens to a company when that happens. But I've never thought about this Michael's craft store situation. If a company is doing well and then goes private.
Some of these venture capital companies, especially back before the 2007, 2008 financial crisis, this was happening a fair amount where companies were taking companies public or private rather, and paying cash for them. Lauryn or Len, have you guys had any experience with this at all?
I don't actually have very much experience with this, but it sounds exactly like what you said, Joe. Like my intuition would say that if you're going private, you have to buy out the person who has the public stock and you're going to take it internal. So yeah, you're just going to get cash for it and that's going to be the end of it.
Yeah. And Len, have you had it happen to you?
No, I haven't, but I'm not sure what would happen, but I believe whoever's buying the company, they're probably going to buy it at a premium to the current price. So as soon as the news gets out, I would expect the stock price to get a little bump. So I think that's actually a good thing if you're a stockholder, not a bad thing.
Both of you guys are absolutely right on. Whoever decides to take them private has to buy all the outstanding shares, right? Your shares are worth value. So they put a price on that. And to Len's point, the price notches up. It was trading, by the way, Michael's around $15 a share and settled in. And I haven't done enough work on this to see what the price is, but it's going to be right around $22 a share because it's trading at $21.91 right now as we make this podcast. So nice jump. What's going to happen, unfortunately, is you don't get a vote. Somebody bought your shares and the board of directors and the shareholders in general, you probably got a ballot. Most of us ignore these ballots that we get about voting, but I'm sure you got a ballot that allowed you to vote on whether you wanted to take your company private or not. Enough people voted. In a lot of companies, that's going to be just the board of directors and just an inner circle of shareholders that can have controlling interest of those ballots. They then pay you cash for your shares. So on some date, if you just go look at any place, put in ticker symbol MIK and look for the news on Michael's, they'll tell you what the date is. And on that date, you will have a bunch of money in your account and no more shares of Michael's. So, but I'd say going from $15 to $22 in a few days.
Not too shabby.
Yeah. Cha-ching right there. And actually Michael's, just looking at from this time last year, Michael's this time last year was at $3 a share. So I'm wondering if this is a SPAC situation. Just curious, seeing these companies that use the shell of a company. Be very interesting to see what the heck's going on here, because have any of you followed Michael's? Anybody, any idea?
No.
Yeah, not at all. But I certainly will take a look. But that's generally what happens. Thanks for your question, Liz. AKA Tina. If you've got a question for us, head to stackingbenjamins.com/voicemail, and we'll be happy to congratulate you for cha-chinging the cash register in this case. That's fantastic. Well, that's going to do it for today, everybody. Let's see what's happening where you live. Mr. Penzo, what's going on at lenpenzo.com?
Hey, I'm featuring 8 really wild insurance claim fraud cases at lenpenzo.com. The lengths that people will go to rip off the insurance companies to get $1 million or even $500,000, off of them. The people do some really crazy things. So that's at lenpenzo.com. Stop on by.
A friend of mine is he's an investigator for insurance companies, and he has some amazing stories about the things people do.
Yeah, it's amazing how clever people can get if they want to be, rip somebody else off. If they put that use for good, they'd make even more money. But anyways.
In cases of what he's talked about, it's been people that needed to think a little harder about how they claim to disability in this case. Yeah. Paula, how about you? What's going on at Afford Anything?
On the Afford Anything podcast, we've got a guy by the name of Joe Saul-Sehy. Who has all of these wacky ideas. I won't give away your secret, but you might know a thing or two about finance.
Shh, easy. Stop it.
And so if you want to hear the brainiac side of Joe, tune into the Afford Anything podcast, available wherever finer podcasts are downloaded.
It's fake news, people. Lauryn, thanks for hanging out with us again. We always have so much fun.
It is always a pleasure to hang out with you all.
So what's going on coming up at the amazing Worth Listening podcast?
Well, in the same vein as Len, we just did insurance, but not fraud. All the things you need to know about property and casualty insurance that are generally pretty boring, but this was not boring at all. We had 2 young ladies come on, in addition to Chloe and myself, and we talked all things insurance that you never think of, and how to optimize your situation there.
Boy, that's good because people don't get it. You just have an agent take care of it or a company take care of it. And once I knew those line items, I had an insurance person from Allstate just walk me through what every line item meant. Took half an hour. I bought him breakfast, and it made me such a more powerful person when it came to my insurance. It was such a good time.
Yeah, it's a really important factor to take into consideration. We all hate it, but when a catastrophe strikes and you're not properly insured, you're going to be pretty pissed off. So we break it all down for you there.
And it's the Worth Listening podcast, available wherever finer podcasts are distributed.
Only the finest podcasts are distributed.
We'll link to that, and of course to Afford Anything and lenpenzo.com at our show notes page.
This podcast thing's, it sounds like it's getting pretty popular. I might have to look into doing one of my own.
Len, come on,
you
man.
should do that.
Is this an announcement?
No.
Is there an announcement?
No, it is not. No, that was kind of a bad joke on my part. Anyway.
Boo. Come on.
You got your first 3 subscribers right here.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm trying to find the
first 3 unsubscribers also.
There we go. On that note, thanks, Len. Ruining our day. That's horrible. Doug, you got it from here, man. What should we have learned today?
Yeah, Joe, I just took my second lap around the block, but let me just get my breath here and I'll tell everybody what they should have learned. Okay. First, not all advice is good advice. Just because someone is giving you some age-old advice, make sure you take it with a grain of salt to determine if that advice is right for you and your plan. Second, farmland? While it's best to look long-term, farmland, surprisingly, has historically been a good diversifier for a portfolio. But the big lesson? Lauryn just showed me her 3 Olympic medals. And now I got to say, that's a true Olympian right there. I kind of thought I was hanging, but okay. Well, it turns out that I may just be like an Olympic fan. I could do it. But I could never carry all that hardware around. I got the bad back and the asthma and the lumbago or something. I don't know, but I could do it. To learn more about our guests and for a ton of extra resources, I sometimes have no idea where Richie finds these resources. The kid's brilliant. Oh, God, did Richie get into the script again? Anyway, head to our show notes page at stackingbenjamins.com. Thanks to our roundtable for stopping by. You can learn more about Lauryn Williams by going to lauryn-williams.com. That's spelled LAURYN-Williams.com. Paula Pant can be found at affordanything.com or by listening to the Afford Anything podcast. Len Penzo is frequently found loitering around lenpenzo.com. You can learn more about Farm Together at farmtogether.com or, of course, visit our show notes page at stackingbenjamins.com. This show is created by Joe Saul-Sehy, produced by Karen Rapine, and engineered by the amazing Steve Stewart. Online, visit us on Twitter at SBenjaminsCast or on our Facebook page. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and I'm a lot deeper than you realize. In fact, sometimes I just stand in front of my mirror and reflect. SB Podcasts may receive payment on the show from sponsors and guests in the form of books, giveaway items, discounts, or other remunerations. That's a big word. There's no way you take advice from these dorks, but like Joe's mom always says, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only, and before making any financial decisions, consult with a real financial advisor. I bet the kid is just copying and pasting links. I mean, he's like, people are feeding him and he's just copying, and he isn't that smart.
You know what, Joe? I had an opportunity to tell my old man story on one of those, but you just skipped me on the vocational.
Oh, sorry. We were already running 32 minutes.
Oh, I know.
We were long from the start.
I mean, do you remember in high school? Do you remember I don't know if your high school, my high school, but we had all those big. In high school, we had metal shop, wood shop, electrical shop, auto shop with car bays. High schools don't do that anymore.
We had none of that.
Yeah, we had my school had all four of those shops.
You guys are old.
Yeah.
Hey, Lauren, watch out with the phrase, you guys. Len is old. I didn't tell any stories. He did.
I'm just judging by the beard colors.
Well, that's, yeah.
Should I dye this? I'm not going to dye this. No, I just can't do that.
So one story my friend Bobby told me about, about somebody trying to defraud. They're filing disability. The insurance companies are fairly sure they're not on disability. Bobby very quickly finds out that this guy has a tea time with a friend of his at like 10 a.m. on the local golf course. And so Bobby goes out there and pays the people at the golf course a little bit of money, tips the person some to say that, you know, they're pretty busy that day, which they were, and to put him with these two people. So he gets put with them, quote, by accident, even though it's completely set up. And he spends the first few holes whenever this guy came up to shoot a shot. Supposedly he's got this horrible back and he can barely walk, right? And the first few holes, Bobby goes, man, you've got a beautiful swing. And Bobby, by the way, is just a great guy. And he has this natural exuberance and he's very positive. Lauren, you're that kind of person, actually. Every time I talk to you, I smile. You just exude this positivity. And Bobby very much is that. So this guy obviously feels really good. He's like, well, thank you. Thank you very much. And he's like, man, that's a great swing. But what the guy doesn't know is they get to about the 7th hole, and Bobby starts saying around hole 5, he's like, my niece is just taking up golf and she's so bad. Oh, she's got this hitch in her swing and she can't get rid of it. And then, on hole 7, he's like, you know what I just thought of? Could I video your swing and show my niece? I would love to. And the guy's like, yeah, heck yeah. Gets up there, and Bobby just takes out his phone and he videos the dude swinging. And he's like, thanks, man. Man, that was great. Thank you. And he said that when they get the date in court, the guy is in court and seems kind of cocky, according to the lawyer that Bobby was working with and the insurance people. And then they call Bobby into the room, and the dude turns around and does a double take and knows exactly what was going on.
I'm surprised Bobby wasn't like, hey, can you carry my bags too while you're, just get some of those things? And
oops.
You just get extra evidence.